MathClass101.com, Algebra, the Quadratic Formula. Copyright 2007 by InternetClass101.com. In this lesson, I wanted to go through with you how we actually can develop what is called the quadratic formula based on what we already know, what we talked about mainly in the last lesson. Basically, what we're going to do this time is go through and use a general equation for the quadratic formula, a general form of the quadratic equation to develop what is known as the quadratic formula. So let me start by writing again the quadratic standard form for the quadratic equation, which is ax squared plus bx ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. That's the general form. That's the standard form of a quadratic equation. Now we're going to develop the quadratic formula using the same completing the square type method we used in the last lesson. But before I do that, to make things a little easier, as a first step, I'm going to divide through by a. That'll give me x squared plus b over a x plus c over a equals 0. 0 divided by a is still 0. Just like the other time when I moved the constant to the other side, I'm going to do the same thing. We're completing the square. That gives me x squared b over a x equals negative c over a. If I subtract c over a from both sides, I get 0 and negative c over a. Now last time I went through with you before we ended the standard steps for completing the square. So instead of going through the more general way I did it last time, I'm going to get straight to applying the steps. So the steps are, we want this term to be in the form of 2ax. This is a different a. Don't confuse it with that a. I'm just writing this here just for a second to jog your memory. So in order to get this of a 2, I need to divide by 2. So I'm going to divide this by 2, which would be b over 2a times x, right? I'm sorry, I misspoke. I'm getting ahead of myself. I shouldn't have put the x here with this. I'm getting ahead of myself. Everything I said is correct except that last thing I wrote. I want to take half of this, which will be clear based on what we said last time. I want to take half of this and square it and add it to both sides. Well, that'll give me what? Half of a over b is b over 2a, and I'm going to square it, and I've added it to the left side. Negative c over a stays, but I have to add the b over 2a squared to this side as well. So we're completing the square. Just like last time, I took half of this constant, which gives me b over 2a. I squared it and added it to both sides. Well, just like last time, I can now replace this. If I let my a that I'm working with, the a from last time, be this whole term here, b over 2a. I know that's confusing, so just bear with me. These are two different a's. If I let this whole thing in parentheses be my a, where last time we showed that we had, remember from last time we reminded ourselves that if we have x plus a squared, that can be expanded to give x squared plus 2ax plus a squared. Remember that? So what I'm doing here is what I'm trying to say is this term here in parentheses is the same thing as our a, just like we did in the last example, and that's why I put this in parentheses. That's this a. I tell you what, I'm going to clarify it this way. Let me call this will stay a. Let me call this a prime, okay, to distinguish them. These all stay a's. This is now something different. This is not a, this is a prime. It's a different quantity now. So my b over 2a squared is the same thing as my a prime squared.